I'd like to call to order the meeting of Monday, December the 12th, and if you please join me by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The clerk would please take the roll.
Councilmember Archibald.
Here.
Councilmember Ashford.
Present.
Councilmember Haremza.
Here.
Councilmember Lamb.
Here.
Councilmember Mosirak.
Here.
Councilmember Pemberton.
Here.
Mayor Rep.
Here. You have the minutes from the regular meeting of November the 28th. Is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Support.
Councilmember Ashford, supported by Councilmember Mosirak. Is there any changes to the minutes? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes will stand as submitted. We do have two presentations tonight. If the clerk would please read the first one.
So the first one, we're going to change just a little bit to where we are going to give out a proclamation to the United Way for this year's campaign.
Want to join me at the podium, please? Okay. Whereas United Way of St. Clair County partners with the community in meeting the needs of people in the city of Port Huron, and whereas the United Way of St. Clair County serves the people of Port Huron through its support of 26 organizations which seek to meet the needs of the people in our community. And whereas these organizations supported by the United Way of St. Clair County directly connected Port Huron residents with 8,572 resources last year, and indirectly many more. And whereas monies contributed to United Way of St. Clair County by residents and businesses stay in St. Clair County and are expended under the direction of a board of directors made up of local volunteers. And whereas United Way of St. Clair County provides the most efficient utilization of fundraising efforts by assessing and responding to indicators of local community needs. And whereas the City of Port Huron designates the month of December as United Way of St. Clair County Month in the City of Port Huron, and whereas the Port Huron City Council urges the people and businesses of Port Huron to support the financial campaign of the United Way of St. Clair County to the full extent possible. Now therefore I, Pauline M. Rapp, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the City of Port Huron, and on behalf of Council Members Archibald, Ashford, Haremza, Lamb, Mosirak, and Pemberton, do hereby proclaim December 2022 to be United Way of St. Clair County Month in the City of Port Huron, and on behalf of the people of Port Huron express appreciation to the many volunteers, including the Board of Directors of the United Way of St. Clair County and of the organizations it supports for their generous contributions of time and energy to these agencies which seek to enrich the lives of people of this great county. And here we go.
Thank you, Mayor Rep, Mr. Freed, and council members. When we think of the holiday season, there's always help that's needed in the community, but there really is help that's needed all year round. So it's important that you guys are willing to acknowledge United Way Month in December as we attempt to raise $1.1 million to help people throughout the entire year. So thank you once again. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Presentation number 2.
Representatives from Double Hall Solutions will provide an updated report on the city's South End community engagement sessions.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Absolute pleasure to be here. Mr. Freed, thank you for the opportunity to work with the great South Park community of Port Huron. Tonight we're going to talk about a little bit of our work down there. Just so you know, as we've gone through this process, you're going to hear me refer to it as South Park, the South Side community, Port Huron South Side. All of those are interchangeable for the most part. With me tonight is Amanda Opalewski, who's working for me. She's our Director of Client Engagement. She was one of 3 others that worked with us on this project that are not with us tonight. Again, looking forward to sharing what we heard. So tonight for you, what I thought I would do is first share you a gift. You should all have received a copy of this book that I use and actually will reference a couple times tonight. When I read those quotes tonight, you'll understand exactly why I gave you the full book, so you could have the full context of those comments, because they are written a certain way. Doug Griffiths is an author that writes in my language, and I like his passion as a community builder. The second thing I'll offer to you tonight is an honest disclaimer. I'm new-ish to the consulting world, but I believe a good consultant's going to be honest with you. If you're paying a consultant to tell you exactly what you want to hear, you're wasting your money, in my opinion. Also, a disclaimer to the neighborhood, there may be things that they may not necessarily agree with either. Our job is to take all of the information that we received from the city and also the community and deliver that back to you in a way that makes sense to us, that tries to balance all the different voices that we heard. So just a little bit of a refresher what our scope of work was to get a bit of a lay of the land. Where is South Park? Where does it exist? Who are its people? We spent the 20th and 21st of September here, as well as October 6th. We scheduled a community engagement weekend on Friday, October 14th, and Saturday, October 15th, which we'll talk a little bit about. We took time to assemble the findings and what we heard from the residents that came out to those events. We had an alignment meeting, or what we refer to as alignment, where essentially we're taking our draft findings and we're taking them back out to the community to see if we're on the right track or not. And that was on November 16th at the Reinvestment Center. We finished our recommendations, and now we're here tonight to deliver our findings and our recommendations. So first off, the methodology that we used besides the community visits was over the weekend. We really wanted to engage people in conversation. And so we used writing prompts, asking questions like, what are your hopes? What inspires you? What concerns do you have about your community? And then just open-ended questions like, what other questions, comments, or concerns do you have? Whoops. We've all thought at one point in time as we were growing up, or maybe even now as adults, what it would be like to be a king or queen for a day. So we asked residents, if you had the ultimate power for a day, what would you do in your community? A budget exercise, I believe this is much more effective than doing a dot exercise. All the participants were given an envelope with $1,000 in fake money, and were asked to budget how they would invest those dollars into their community. And then last but not least, we had a giant map, but the wind on Saturday did not want to cooperate with us, so it was not as fun as we had hoped it would be. Altogether, we had approximately 250 comments from about 200 people over the course of those 2 days. The themes that we walked away with, first and foremost, this community is inspired and they are engaged. And I apologize, the fonts are not translating, so it looks like I did a hodgepodge job. Sorry about that. They showed up, first and foremost. They showed up. Between those 2 days, like I said, we had over approximately 200 visitors. The community has visions, and note the asterisk. There is not a unified vision for what should happen there, but there are a lot of ideas, and there's a lot of passion about the potential that this part of the community has. They're ready, but they were ready 20 years ago. As you all know, I think you all know, there was similar types of sessions that were done in 1998, 99, with a report that was provided. It was a Southside Vision 2000, 2005, I believe it was. You might already be aware of this, but there is there's a loss of faith in the local government body, the local government institution. But I think a lot of that is built around misunderstanding as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunities here. There is a general feeling down there that they're not just physically on the other side of the tracks, but they're treated as being on the other side of the tracks. There is a strong feeling that a lot of the investment over the last 10 to 20 years, when things were going gangbusters in downtowns and to the north part of the city, that a lot of that was being directed up here. Now, perception is reality for a lot of people, especially when it comes to this neighborhood. We talked about the lack of distrust. Again, this is a challenge that you guys have, because from what we heard, a lot of the distrust is based on things that happened decades ago. Yes, there might be more recent things that have happened, but the vast majority of what we heard all stems back to longer history. There's also skepticism about what we're doing right here in this very moment. 20 years ago, they had conversations much like this, but they did not see any tangible results from that. At least that's what they've shared with us. they don't feel represented. Now, we do have a council member, as I understand, that used to live in the South Park community, but currently, as I understand it, there is no elected member that comes from South Park area. Now, I don't know about your other boards and commissions and things like that, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But at least from what we heard, there's a big openness there to be proven wrong. I think there's an invitation there to reestablish that relationship with the South Park community. When it comes to their community, they like the past. When they present their vision for what they want to see, it looks a lot like it does now and what it did in the past. South Park was developed originally as a factory town in the early 1900s. It's a walkable neighborhood. It's filled with craftsman style. No thanks when it comes to gentrification. That was a word we heard over and over, and that is a genuine fear that this community has would happen down there, especially with the new development. Rehabilitation, infill, they're all in. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of vacant lots, small and large. And they're okay with this project that's coming in as long as we're doing this type of redevelopment in a balanced way that supports all residents. This is a community that's about all the people that live in South Park. It doesn't matter age, race, socioeconomic status. They want places for everybody there. But we need to get moving. You'll see in the report when you get a chance to spend more time there, there are some trends that are going in the wrong direction when it comes to this part of your community. When it comes to public safety and blight, a lot of the things you would hear in almost any community, more multimodal transportation, let's fill in the sidewalk gaps, let's make new linkages. Is there a way to improve public transportation? How do we make it safer for all transportation users down there? Keep the community policing going. As I was looking at your police department's website, it sounds like there's a strong commitment to community policing. Continue to have your officers building those relationships with the folks down there in that community. And code enforcement, there's a lot of consternation when it comes to code enforcement in this neighborhood. But when I had an opportunity to speak with folks about some of these different violations that were brought to my attention, and I can explain why, they start to get it a little bit more. So it's not don't do code enforcement, but help make more connections to the resources that are offered through Ms. Thomas's office, for example, or how do we engage the community with a volunteer group to make a connection that, hey, this house needs help. Community food access, this is a very emotional topic here. The River District, as it became abundantly clear, especially after our November 16th meeting, this was not just a market. This was not just a place to get food. This was a place of social and cultural connection. This was a market that carried foods that were culturally important to the African American community in South Park, and that is no longer easily accessible. Market to grocery store oftentimes can support other commercial uses. A big box solution is not likely going to fill this void down there. They're looking for a neighborhood-based solution. And so I offer a potential case study that could maybe be looked at a little bit further. This is the Southeast Market in Grand Rapids. Now, yes, Grand Rapids is a much different and much larger demographic than Port Huron, but this is a neighborhood-based food solution that would be worth taking a look at. I know it's going to go on my list of places to visit. When it comes to the businesses to come into their neighborhood, they want neighborhood-based businesses. Again, going back and looking at history for inspiration. Embracing the past, neighborhood design with neighborhood service districts. This is an example of the type of building that used to be in that area. You had the zero lot line, you had the small buildings. Now, it wasn't like a pure downtown or anything like that, but you had more of neighborhood hubs. And then creating an entrepreneurial environment, businesses that are really based on relationships, businesses that create opportunity for the neighborhood. We heard that over and over and over. How do we redevelop this neighborhood in a way that boosts the opportunity and boosts the lives of everybody that lives there? And if you haven't caught the theme, relationships. This community is very personal. They're very relational based. Quality of life and economic mobility through recreation and life skills. The James R. Leonard Center, that being not lost, but maybe closed off or less accessible to the community, is also a source of consternation. When we had a chance to visit the museum in town, we heard the story of Mr. Leonard and the wall that is now inaccessible to the community, especially during school hours. But you have groups like the Sons Outreach and the Athletic Factory that are trying to step up and fill these gaps that are in the community. But it's not just recreation that they're looking for. They're looking for the opportunities to build life skills and support human and social needs. And there's been recent progress. You have, as I recall, senior meals that are coming back and coming back to the reinvestment center. So there is progress in moving things forward. So here's where we have our first quote. So a lot of the challenges with the South Side and the community is all based on history. So I'm going to try to do a metaphor. I might epically fail here, but I'm going to give it a shot. So if this is history, you have a lot of fissures, you have a lot of cracks that make that history tough. But all this history informs where we are living at right now. And author Doug Griffiths addresses this in his book about the issue of clinging on to history so tightly. The attitude that causes someone to live in the past, whether it is holding on to an idea of some glorified utopia or holding on to some injustice that must be righted before anyone can move ahead, is intended to keep everyone looking in the wrong direction. That type of thinking is a distraction from the project, initiative, or investment that will help build your community's future. There is an anonymous quote that reads, "Forget the past. No one becomes successful in the past." It is a valuable quote to hold on to. If you want to kill your community, live in the past, and you and your community are sure to become part of the past, a distant, nostalgic, forgotten memory of the dustbin of history. If you really dig into this quote, it's not about forgetting the past. Let the past inform you, but in order for us to really move forward, we need to get back out on these outer edges. So our recommendations. I'm going to quote this one too, because this was probably one of my favorite quotes from one of your residents. Her hope was that the second generation of those who fought for so many improvements have the resources and support of the community to continue the work, both from an equality standpoint and an improvement standpoint. I found that to be powerful. So recommendation number one, we need to get back and rebuild these bridges with the community. First and foremost, perhaps the creation of a resident advocate role. Now this wouldn't necessarily just support the South Side community, but there are a lot of challenges that the folks in that part of the community have dealt with. I heard some very personal stories at our November visit, particularly about a resident with having an issue with a landlord and trying to navigate that process. Now I heard from your community development director, you're working to bring these resources to your community so they can get through if landlord is retaliating because they weren't keeping up and they got reported. So that stuff's happening, but there's more examples where somebody that almost like a social worker type role can take an issue from start and usher it all the way through the process front to back. I've been in local government for almost 20 years, and there are still times that processes and procedures and all of that don't make any sense to me either. So I think that is one potential opportunity. Consider looking at a Citizens Academy. Remember we talked about, I said lack of faith and understanding. I think if there was an opportunity for some sort of Citizens Academy where you could get residents in, again, not just the South Side residents, where they're getting in, they're talking with your directors, they're seeing how the operations work, they see what takes an item from being, possibly it needs enforcement on code enforcement to this is why we need to go and write for this brush that is outside or what have you. The other nice thing about a Citizens Academy is it's an opportunity to build your bench. Again, I don't know what your boards and commissions look like as far as representation from across the community, but at a Citizens Academy or other community events, it's a great place to look for future volunteers. Neighborhood Improvement Authority. David and I have been talking, going back and forth, what is the right tool here? I still think pretty strongly Neighborhood Improvement Authority is the right tool here, and it's the key word, neighborhood. I think if you try to make this about anything more than the neighborhood, you're going to struggle. The Neighborhood Improvement Authority allows you to do a lot of the things you want to do and keep the focus on the neighborhood. For the commercial areas, there's other places, there's other laws that we can lean into to make commercial redevelopment happen. But first, if it's possible, and I know James is good at this kind of stuff, if we can get some legislative tweaks to the Neighborhood Improvement Authority Act, I think we could go even further with this project. I already mentioned there's other tools that we can use as needed. Strategy, I pardon my references to pop culture. There's one in your report, and here's another one. The NIA needs to build one strategy to rule them all. We need one strategy that's going to move this community forward. This is not pushing out other groups. This is not pushing out other agendas. But ultimately, for this to be successful from an economic reinvestment strategy, we need one umbrella and figure out how everybody pushes that forward. In that strategy, let's take some time. Let's look at the market. What can the South Side area support in terms of housing, commercial, and what have you? But we need to think about not just what can it support today, but what can it support tomorrow? Because remember, we're trying to achieve a vision here. Identify and conceptualize priority sites. I'm not a developer, but there are a lot of great opportunities in this neighborhood, and a lot of great opportunities that would benefit the neighborhood, not just, building a big box, calling it good or whatever. We can actually build community here. There's space to do it. Market those opportunities and seek the right collaborators, but know the limits. Anytime you get in a negotiation, you're going to get asked, you're going to get asked, you're going to ask, but eventually you got to know when to walk away. Building a culture of entrepreneurialism and economic mobility. This is about economic gardening. How do we build business? How do we build the economy from within the community and up? Yes, others are welcome in, absolutely. But when we're coming in here, how do we support the community as a whole? I would definitely look into whether or not we could build a business incubator. Is SC4 a potential partner? I don't know. Maybe it's something worth exploring. Again, another case study for you. This is the Nest Collaborative in Mount Clemens. If you've ever been in downtown Mount Clemens, this is a really cool spot. So this incubator focuses on women-owned businesses. They come in, they get mentorship, they get training, they get camaraderie, and they have a retail outlet for their goods and services. Last but not least, do. Please don't let this report sit on a shelf. So many times cities pay for studies and then they sit there and then they get forgotten, and then next thing you know, it's expired and we got to do a new one. This community has been waiting and waiting. But everything I heard, this community is ready to roll up its sleeves, and they're hoping you are too. I leave you one last quote. In order for this to be accomplished, it's all about collaboration, right? We got to get it past the old history. We got to all work together. We got to make this happen. So again, this quote's a little bit longer, but bear with me if you don't mind. Successfully killing your community often depends on the amount of energy and time you wish to expend in achieving that goal. Passively refusing to cooperate takes very little actual work. Aggressively competing with other organizations or communities takes more daily effort. But if you can induce the culture of destructive competition, the dividends can pay off for years with little effort. Fundamentally, killing your community comes down to refusing to cooperate with anyone. Don't cooperate with other people, other service clubs, other groups, or other communities. Focus on what divides you more than what unites you. Concentrate on making those little arbitrary lines in the sand the real issue. That will allow you to remain fiercely independent, and eventually, you will be able to die alone. Thank you very much for your time. Really love the opportunity to work with you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, Nate, and thank you for all your hard work in putting this together. Appreciate it very much. And that being said, more importantly, I thank all of the residents that participated in this several-day engagement, because I know there was a lot of people there, and we appreciate everything you've given into it, all the time and effort, and we have a lot of information to read here, and we will do so, and we will not put it on a shelf. We will look through it and discuss it as a city council, probably maybe even sometime when we're having a goal session in January. So it's a very long document, so obviously we're not going to go through it all tonight, but we will take the time to discuss it. Is there anything from the rest of the council?
No, I would just like to commend Nate and, Double Hall Solutions on a job well done. And I did get here a lot earlier, and I was able to not scan, but actually read what was in here. And it's very well put together, and it's not like it's all over the place. It's like compartmentalized in order for us to take this. This is what needs to happen, you know, and we need to do it. And so he just made a job for the city council easy. So let's give him another round of applause, because that is no easy job. And I like the point even more so that he didn't just talk to us in this, you know, telling us what we wanted to hear. He said he's not, you know, he's not going to lie to us, quote unquote. And I'm glad he didn't lie to us, because we would have found it out anyway. So, but anyway, but I look forward to our goal session, not even waiting to get to the goal session, just to see what we can do now. There's some low-hanging fruit here that we can do without any, you know, real big, you know, any really big, long meeting or something. There's something we can look at and we can do it. And we're going to do that. And we're going to do the hard stuff too. And I'm not just saying that. I'm part of this council, this body, and I expect my fellow council members, the mayor, and I know James, he's been on it. We've been doing some things behind the scenes, so to speak, and he's been, you know, trying to push that lever. And it's hard sometimes because, you know, the messenger is always the one that's going to make the difference. Just like you said, we didn't need to bring Nate here to hear you say you don't trust us. We already know that. You know, we knew that at age 4 and 5. You know, don't trust the city. So there's nothing, you know, there's nothing new. So what we need to do is, one thing about trust, you just don't say it. You got to earn it. And this city council has to earn that trust. And with earning that trust, you get to a place where you feel like you belong to a part of a whole city instead of half of a city. So people don't operate like that. I don't care what color you are. If I don't feel like I don't belong, I don't, you know, I just can't function out here. You're just in a little space by yourself and you pay taxes like everybody else. So just, you know, just like he said, don't get stuck in the past and out with the attitudes. We all need to come to the table and get this together, collaborate and learn to work together to have the kind of Port Huron, south side, east side, north side that we need to have. But right now, we're going to be intentional. We're going to be intentional to the south side of Port Huron. So thank you very much.
Any comments from the rest of the council?
I think that covers it.
I think it pretty much does, yes. Thank you. And we will move on with the agenda. Next item on the agenda is public comment. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak, please come to the podium, give us your name and address, and you have 4 minutes.
Julian Ruck, 1423 Lapeer Avenue, Polly's Place. Tonight I want to start by wishing the Southside Initiative good luck, and sincerely. I want the community to come up, every single neighborhood. And I know there are some people involved in that organization who don't like me at all. And if you knew the backstory, you know those people were kind of a spin-off of season 2 of Polly's Place. It's very difficult to watch this council give the floor to so many people while continually denying to share the floor in an extended conversation with the Harrison Point City Initiative nonprofit for a neighborhood just down the street, with me, the owner of Polly's Place. See, no charity came forth and gave us money to get started. COVID hit, and me, as a professional entertainer, traveling musician, event organizer all over the country, having come back to my hometown after 20 years away simply to help my mentally unfit mother figure out her retirement. That's why I was here when COVID hit. And I looked around at the city I grew up in and thought, oh my God, it's way worse than it used to be. Way worse. And the longer I've been in this city, the more I can't turn away. Councilmember Lamb, you're a nurse. You understand that when you're walking somewhere, if you see somebody in a medical emergency, you have to engage. You have to, because you have the specialized training. There are some places where if you wouldn't, you could be prosecuted. Okay? I have the specialized training. That's what I've been doing for 20 years. And time again, I have come to this city, I've been ignored, lied about, time and time again. I mean, you want to talk about distrust. I've been the point man bringing urban gardening to this community since 2020. And I have to keep force feeding you information 4 minutes at a time. Not only that, after the last meeting, Mayor Rep approached me in anger for what I had to say. See, these 4 minutes are my freedom of speech. As an American citizen, my inalienable rights. To then reprimand me for what I had to say afterwards is totally unacceptable. Because when these 4 minutes are up, the relationship is different. You're the mayor, I'm a citizen. Not only that, Councilmember Archibald came over, and you both had a lot to say with regard to this city doesn't want urban ag zoning. I don't want to have neighbors that have chickens. When I brought up gentrification to you in our argument right there, you rolled your eyes and laughed. There are witnesses. Councilmember Pemberton was there. Police Chief Platzer was there. Can't deny it this time. The distrust is real and for a reason. Okay? You don't need to like me. I'm not here to be liked. There are 7,000 people living in poverty in this city of only 28,000 and dropping. And you've been in charge of it for a decade. Whose fault is that? It's not their fault. It's not their fault. And the proliferation of neighborhood nonprofits is proof we're doing something about it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the City Council this evening? Please come forward, give us your name and address, and you have 4 minutes.
Madam Mayor, City Council, City Administration, Joe Bixler, 2022 Thornhill Street in Port Huron. I'm here on behalf of the Southside Initiative Board, and I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the council and the administration for putting the resources forth with respect to the process that was described to you by Double House Solutions this evening. Even though we have not received a copy of that report, we will, and we will digest it and provide our input to you all as a result moving forward to your January goal session. But we'll need some time to digest that ourselves. Double House Solutions needs to be commended. They provided an extremely dynamic process for our neighborhood, and we expected that. We made sure, Southside Initiative made sure that those folks showed up at those 2 sessions. And in addition to making sure that they showed up, we lugged propane tanks to make sure people were somewhat warm on the Saturday afternoon. We made sure that folks were taken care of at the first session on Friday evening. We're committed. And we're committed to providing honest and forthright input that can begin to create the true partnership with our city and the residents in our municipal government. Again, the process that Double House Solutions created was very dynamic, and we appreciate the process. The process must be ongoing. Case in point, the November update session was supposed to be an update session. It became an input session. And thanks to Nate for being flexible to make that happen. We did receive some updates, but it was more important to listen to additional input that folks had with respect to their concerns. The process must be ongoing. It will continue to be ongoing. The Southside Initiative is committed to bringing community residents to the table, much like we already did. And it would be remiss if I didn't make this comment. You cannot have economic development without community development in this fashion. You can't. It won't happen. Oh yeah, you can go build a 4-story building and you can bring in whatever you want. But if residents aren't involved in that decision-making process, it will fail, ultimately. That's an opinion. There are many neighborhood organizations that Nate referred to in his report that can and will make an impact in South Park. We invite all of them to join all of us. This is hard work, and it's hard work with honest conversations and transparent intent. The changes we seek will occur incrementally over time. There will be some things that we'll be able to do that are quote-unquote the low-hanging fruit, and we are doing those. But we know that the long-term efforts will take many, many years, and we're ready for that to happen. We're not going anywhere, and we're going to stay engaged. Thank you again for your commitment to working with us now and in the future.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the City Council this evening? Please come forward, give us your name, and you have 4 minutes.
Sorry. Kathleen McCready, 414 14th Street. I commend everything that's the forward movement in South Park. I work in South Park every 5 days a week, so I look forward to seeing a lot of changes. And I really hate to be saying what I need to say tonight of all nights with all the, anyway. Mayor, Rep, and Council, and Manager Freed. Fun fact, if you use Google and put in Harrison Point, Port Huron, Michigan in the search bar, you will be rewarded with real estate for sale within the boundaries of Harrison Point. I take that as a compliment. I am one of the founding members of the Harrison Point neighborhood. It is our desire to be a positive example of a diverse population of homeowners, renters, businesses, from all walks of life, living our best life and looking out for each other. Our desire to be a distinct neighborhood of our city stems from the North versus South division in Port Huron. We did not identify with either North or South. We chose the name Harrison Point to honor the long-standing elementary school that served this neighborhood, and the point to say, get the point? Harrison Point is not Harrison Point City Initiative. It is said that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Then the recognition of Harrison Point has made a difference. Mr. Ruck, while using the Harrison Point name as part of his name, has been insulting to others in the room. His reply to my concerns that I voiced to him was that of a bully, as was his rating of the council members at the last city council meeting. The only reason I'm saying this is not all of you know me, so you may not understand my connection to Harrison Point, the work. Anyway, Mr. Ruck has the right to garden. I do have to state that if one of his files of gardens appeared next to me with no notice given, with activities such as having days-long cooks-outs and other activities he has outlined on his manifest and whatever, in my opinion, has outlined would be a huge disturbance and totally inappropriate for a residential area. In my opinion, the city has been more than tolerant of a non-conforming situation. It is a vacant residential lot. An agriculture ordinance would give direction as to what gardens that are producing food for consumption other than owners of the property could and could not do, and give neighboring property owners and the neighborhood a path to expectations and resolution. It would also allow a legitimate nonprofit or for-profit garden to function as a good citizen. So I hope you take this in the spirit that it's given and help us move forward and stop the arguing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the City Council this evening? Please come forward, give us your name, where you live, and you have 4 minutes.
Hello, my name is Mary Williams, and I live on the south side of Port Huron. And it's a wonderful thing to have some things steered down there that are going to start happening, hopefully. But I hope we don't forget some of the people who started the process, who were the squeaky wheels coming to this room saying that we wanted change, because we need to be a part of the process also. I hope we continue to make sure that the NAACP may get a copy of that book so we can read and follow up with suggestions also, because I think it's very important that the organizations did try to bring in groups, but we need to make sure that everybody is included in that, in the group, not just the people who will be hush people and not challenge things or speak on things that could be looked at it in a different way. Overall, it was very informative, but where I come from, and I'm sorry, this is the future, this is the past, but when you bring things to the south end of town, you don't normally go to a bar to do them. We cut out a whole section of people when we go to the bar. It used to be a time that things were brought to the churches down there, and then the churches would give out that information to the people who don't attend bars. And it was too cold on that one day when we were out there in the cold, but I still made it, and it was good information. But I just don't want, I truly believe that out of 250 people, it should have been more people included to give their input in. So I'm just saying, don't forget the churches down there. Don't forget the NAACP that does a lot of work down there. We're all working, the Southside Initiative, as well as the NAACP and SCORE and different organizations are working also in that area. So we just can't forget about them. And we appreciate all the other organizations, and we would truly like to be a part of them or to collaborate together. But just don't forget, and then it kept saying that we don't trust city council. It's not that we don't trust city council. Sometimes we don't trust the process. So it's not that we don't trust you guys. We're out there, we're working in different areas. We can disagree with you and still walk out this door and have a common denominator about ourselves, that we do love the city of Port Huron. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council this evening? Please come forward. Give us your name, where you live, and you have 4 minutes. Seeing no one, I will declare public comment closed. We will move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, supported by Councilmember Pemberton, and we will take the vote.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Haremza?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Mosrek?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
Yes. The items on the consent agenda received and filed notification from the Michigan Liquor Control Commission that applications have been received. One from the Desmond Depot Brewhouse LLC for a new microbusiness brewer license located at 210 Court Street, and the other one from Bootleggers Axe Company LLC for a new Class C license located at 402 Quay Street. Resolutions adopted the 2023 Federal Poverty Income Guidelines and Policy for granting or denying poverty exemptions. Approved the scheduling of a public hearing for January 23rd, 2023 to hear comments regarding the draft 2023-2027 Parks and Recreation Plan. Approving the appointment of Dale Hamelia to the Historic District Commission with a term to expire March 10th, 2026. And confirming the city manager's reappointment of Jamie Cameron and Greg Randall to the Water System Advisory Council with a term to expire December 10th, 2026. And we will move on then from the city manager.
Receive and file the annual comprehensive financial report for the year ended June 30th, 2022.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Councilmember Ashford, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, and I believe we have representatives here to discuss the financial report.
Madam Mayor and Council as well, I do want to take a moment to note that this will be Ed Brennan's final audit, serving as the Director of Finance. A lot of people don't know this, but the financial documents are actually compiled by Ed himself throughout the many years of being our Finance Director, which has literally saved, and your staff. A good bureaucrat just takes credit. He's done an excellent job. He actually stayed on longer than expected from his well-deserved retirement to make sure we got this process. As you go through here tonight, you'll see that, again, the city continues to move in a positive direction, and Ed Brennan is the reason for that.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Amanda Cronk, Senior Manager with Plant Moran, and with me tonight is Dana Delboy, Manager for the city's audit, and we are here tonight to give you a high-level overview of the city's financial position as of June 30th, 2022. So we did perform our audit as of that date, and that includes your annual comprehensive financial report and the city's single audit, which is required due to the level of federal grant funding that the city does receive. So in your packet tonight, you do have a few items, first of which is this nearly 200-page document. We thought instead of going through all 200 pages, we would provide you a slide summary, which you also have in front of you. You also will have a copy of our end of audit letter. This again is informational and provides you some background on how our audit did go. We have no significant exceptions or anything like that that you will find in that letter. So certainly if there are questions on the letter, we'd be happy to take those. One item in your bound report that I do want to cover begins on page 16, and that really is your audit opinion. So that's what you've engaged Plant Moran to do, is issue an audit opinion on your set of financial statements. I'm happy to tell you that that is an unmodified opinion, and that is the highest level of assurance that you can receive on a set of financial statements. What that means to you is that your financial statements are free from material misstatement. So that's always your goal, is to have no material misstatements in this set of financial statements. Now again, James did mention that Ed and his team and the whole city really do spend a lot of time with us during our audit process. We're here for 3 weeks, and then we do a lot of procedures offsite as well, and we really want to thank certainly Ed and Bobby and the finance team, along with all of the city employees. We couldn't do the audit without all of their cooperation. With that, as I mentioned, we do have some shortened slides just to give you a high-level overview of the city's financial statements that Dana's going to walk us through.
Thank you. All right, so first we're going to take a look at the city's general fund revenue. So this shows the 5-year history of the general fund's primary revenue streams. You can see here the largest source of revenue is taxes, and this includes both property taxes and income taxes. And this accounts for just shy of 60% of the city's revenue. The increase from 2021 to 2022 is primarily related to just the increase in taxable value. The next highest revenue stream is federal and state sources, which includes grant revenue as well as state shared revenue. So now looking at the expenditure side of the general fund, you can see public safety is the largest category. The different expenditure categories were fairly consistent, with each having slight increases this year. The overall increase was approximately 11% for a total of $30.2 million. So this slide really just combines the data from the previous two slides. The revenues and transfers in are actually in the orange columns, and the teal columns represent the expenditures and transfers out. So revenue streams were consistent with expenditures, which really speaks to the city continuing to live within its means. We encourage the city to continue to closely monitor these expenditure levels going forward as well. And then fund balance is represented by the line which hovers around the $5 million mark and has continued to gradually increase, which is certainly trending in the right direction. So the purpose of this slide is to capture how all of the city's fund balance is classified. So this shows the city's governmental funds, and the colors of the shaded bars represent the type of fund balance within those governmental funds. The two largest categories are restricted and non-spendable. Majority of the non-spendable relates to amounts that are restricted by outside parties. The second largest category is restricted fund balance, which primarily relates to street maintenance and repairs. The city will want to just continue to make sure that fund balance is being used for its intended purpose. The unassigned fund balance represents approximately $5.9 million, which is all within the general fund and resources that can be used throughout the city. The line near the top shows expenditures, which was just shy of $40 million at the end of the 2022 fiscal year. So although there was an overall increase in fund balance, the majority of that increase is in the restricted funds, and unassigned fund balance remains stable, as we can see from the graph showing the last 3 years. So we know that pension and OPEB and legacy costs have continued to be a large focus for the city, so we wanted to highlight some of the progress that the city has made over the last 3 years. So focusing on the pension plan first on the left-hand side, just as a reminder, the city does measure the liability using a 1231 valuation on this data, which is in line with MERS. So the funding position of the plan drastically improved with pension bonds being issued. The orange bar represents the net liability, which decreased from 76 million to now 10 million. From a financial reporting perspective, this shows the impact of issuing the debt and making those pre-funding contributions.
In addition, also noteworthy, in addition to the pension bonding, significant in the valuation was the pension concessions that our labor groups took. That was significant, about 15 million in just overtime capping, and about 18 to 20 million in actual bridging down the multiplier. So when you see that funding level, it wasn't just from pension bonding, it was also on the backs of our workers. And I always just want to highlight that. I know as we go on 5 or 10 years from now, I never want to forget what our employees sacrificed to make this possible.
So on the right-hand side, that represents the OPEB plan. You can see here that the results related to the OPEB plan are fairly consistent when you're comparing June 30th, 2020 to June 30th of 2021. However, from 2021 to 2022, the liability decreased from 44 million to 13 million. So by making some plan design changes, the city's total OPEB liability decreased 28.5 million this year. So overall, this slide really is just intended to demonstrate the strides that the city has made with funding progress for both plans. This gives an outlook of what the next few years are anticipated to look like for pension contributions. Again, this information is as of 12/31/21, which is your most recent MERS valuation. This was the second valuation that took place after the issuance of the pension bonds, which contributed to helping alleviate costs year to year. And as you can see, the orange bars represent the projected contributions in the future. So this next slide shows the city's net position for governmental activities on the left-hand side and business type on the right-hand side. With the recent change in OPEB, as I covered on the funding progress slide, we wanted to also show how this has drastically impacted the city's just overall net position. You can see that the governmental net position was negative for the last 4 years and now stands as a positive 11.3 million for the most recent fiscal year end. Also on the right-hand side, you can see the net position for the business type activities was at 74 million just 5 years ago, and for the 2022 fiscal year end, net position was 113 million, which was a $15 million increase from 2021's net position of 98 million.
Just to reiterate, this is essentially our net worth, assets, less our liabilities. So we're essentially, we owed more than we were valued for the last, due to the GASB rules for the last couple of years. The difference with our assets, you know, if you have a house or a car, you have assets. We have roads, water lines, and sewer lines. So if we wanted to meet our obligations, it's really difficult to sell a road, to sell a water line, to sell a sewer line. So it doesn't mean we're as liquid as we are now. Our assets are still pretty fixed and hard. It's not like we have that much liquidity in the bank.
Great point. One other comment that I just want to add on your legacy costs. So Dana just got done covering all of the great improvements and all the focus that council and the city has placed on this. Just one thing that I want to advise is not losing that focus, not saying, oh, we're in a great position today, because those numbers that Dana just shared with you are based on a number of estimates and a number of assumptions and, you know, mortality factors and discount rates and a lot of things that are out of your control. So I guess my word of caution there is control, you know, make sure you're keeping an eye on the things that are within your control, and you've done an excellent job at that. But, you know, that story can quickly change just because that is such a significant estimate that you've engaged actuaries to formulate for you and for the finance team. So great improvements. I've been here for a couple of years now, and I was here when that story wasn't that story. So just keeping an eye on that is my word of caution there.
Okay, so this next slide essentially shows the same data. It's just compiling both the governmental and business type activities all into one. So really just wanted to show here how reducing you know, the impact, how significant it was, reducing those liabilities and the improvement it had on overall net position. So for the water fund, the graph on the left-hand side is presented, how the financial statements are presented, and you can see operating revenues exceed operating expenses. So this fund did add to net position in the current year. The graph on the right-hand side is intended to show the fund's activity from more of a cash flow perspective by including debt and capital outlay. So with this, the water fund is still bringing in positive cash flows. So looking at the same data, except for the wastewater fund, you know, wastewater shows a similar story on the left-hand side with operating revenues exceeding operating expenses. However, when you layer in your debt service payments and capital outlay, on the right, the wastewater fund actually did use cash this year. Not necessarily a bad thing as long as it's planned, so just wanted to make sure that's on the city's radar. I know infrastructure in these two systems is costly, and the city has done a good job investing in the systems for the future.
So again, the moral of the story there on your water and wastewater fund is, again, keeping your eye on the ball. I know a lot of those investments need to be planned, right? Just to get those investments made. And again, just making sure that you're not seeing trends that are unfavorable to those funds. So that was the summary that we had put together on your financial statements, trying to boil it down for all of you. Certainly, if there are questions, we would be happy to take those.
Does anyone have any questions? Yes, go ahead, Councilmember Huron.
I did have one question on slide 6 when you were saying keep an eye on, you know, the projections. So 2021, it's more even with the projections, and then 22, there's a blip versus, you know, what it's going to look like going, you know, forward. Can you explain how 21, 22, then why we think it's going back down?
I can take that. It's a valuation question. It's based on the valuation through MERS. After our bonding, that original projection was done before our bonding. So there's about a 24 to 36 month workout period, which we're now engaging in that end of that workout period. So hence the deviation But we now have our new experience study with more accurate projections going forward, which align with the original refinancing plan.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone? Thank you. Thank you
Great.
for the
Thank you
report.
so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Ed, and your staff for all that you do. And we will take a vote on receiving and filing the financial report.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Haremza?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Mosrak?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. We'll move on to item 2.
Receive and file the quarterly financial report for the 3-month period ending September 30th, 2022.
Is there a motion?
Support.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, supported by Councilmember Mosrak. Are you going to give a presentation at all
Well,
on
if you
that?
would like me to, yeah.
Well, you are Ed. Well,
I dance on command.
there you go.
We are we're about 25% into the year. We've only spent about 24%, which includes a lot of our one-time expenditures. So we're tracking on target of where we should be. We will know a little bit more in this when we finish the second quarter and able to see some of our capital outlay and what those project costs in. So you have the fall project costs are coming to conclusion. So by the next quarter, we should have a really good estimate of where we are. But so far, it's looking good.
Very good. Any questions?
Yeah, I think the report is kind of comparable to the previous speakers that spoke. And then also, I'd just like to commend, I think, Ed Brennan. Yeah, you just knocked the ball out of the park again. I love it when you kept it real as to when the young lady spoke that we have to still be careful and watch what we spend. And you actually didn't configure any of the grant money. It wasn't inclusive in any of your numbers. And so I kind of like checked that. And even though we increased by 2.3 million, it still don't cause us to, go crazy and say we got this. So, so what I'm trying to say is all of this is that in that 3-month period of time, we're still just slightly over, but not real over in terms of finances. So I just want to make sure everybody got a real look at that. So the other question that I had down here. So it's just all real-time figures, and when you look at our big book that we got down here, it substantiates all that you have. So I want to thank you very much for all that.
Is there anyone?
Staff.
Is there anyone else on council has any questions about the quarterly financial report? We will take the vote.
Councilmember Haremza?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Mosrak?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 3, please.
Accepting the bid from Trojan Development Company Incorporated in the amount of $236,000 for the removal, rebuild, and installation of intermediate transfer pumps number 1 and 2 at the water filtration plant.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Support.
Madam Mayor and Council, this was a pump number 2, the rehabilitation pump number 2 was a planned expenditure, about $165,000. It was in the budget. As they were beginning to remove pump number 2, pump number 1 began vibrating and showing signs of distress. So we decided to do an alternate, which brought it to $236,000 to rehab both pumps. The reason for that is if we know we're going to have to do this in the next 12 months, the mobilization cost, the cost of pulling the pumps, and also the threat of having a pump down, it was just too great. So the benefits of getting both pumps done, the economies of scale, and eliminating mobilization costs for the second time, and then also making sure that we have resiliency and duplicity in the system. So that's why you're getting both done for $236, even though $165 was budgeted. It is for both, not a single one.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions?
Yeah, Mayor, how many pumps do we have?
3.
3? Okay, so while these 2 are out, we're going to depend on
Yep,
3.
and we also have, we technically have 4. There's 3, and there's a backup pump, so, yep.
Oh, okay. And then also, so with that, Have we ever experienced this problem before?
Yeah, this is normal when the pumps need to be rehabbed.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? We will take the vote.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Mosrak?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Haremza?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes, we'll move on to resolutions. Number 1, please.
Authorizing 20
Is
payments.
there a motion?
So moved.
Support?
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, supported by Councilmember Mosrak. Any questions on any payments?
No questions, Mayor, but just a shout out to our change orders. You guys don't always watch how we're spending this money, and to your credit here, James and staff, you only have one change order, and it's quite simplified as to what it was for.
Yep, just note that a change order isn't necessarily a bad thing because a lot of our change orders are reduced costs and reduced quantities. Some are to increase cost. And so it just depends if we're doing a project where you get into something and you find out the soil's not what you anticipated and you need more quantities, or we get into something like, for instance, in the water plant where we found out the pipes were deteriorating inside the concrete wall. That can run up the cost about 10% there, but all things have to be fixed.
Yeah. But they don't have to run over all them times either.
No.
Okay, thank you.
There's no other questions. We will take the vote.
Councilmember Mosrak?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Haremza?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Item 2.
Approving the allocation of American Rescue Plan funding to the Blue Water Community Action in the amount of $200,000 for the purpose of creating a men's homeless shelter.
Is there a motion?
So moved. Support.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, supported by Councilmember Lamb.
Madam Mayor and Council, here you kind of have a proposal that is comprehensive in two ways. Well, first and foremost, I do want to thank the St. Clair County Coordinating Services Body. I want to thank the Blue Water Community Action Agency. I want to thank Melinda, Kathy Switek, Josh, Pastor Seppo, all the partners who are working behind the scenes. Everyone says, what's the city government doing to help homelessness? Well, it's a community effort. We can't just, it's multiple organizations working together. It's getting cold, and we need to get someplace online immediately. So there'll be a short-term facility partnering with churches to find a place to do a warming shelter for the next 2 to 3, 4 months, which is what the $134,000 is for this proposal. Anything left over, should it come in under budget, will go towards up to $200,000 for a permanent homeless facility that we have yet, that they're still working on and trying to identify operators and locations. So this is really about identifying an urgent need. It's getting cold. We have a long winter ahead, and we need to have a place in the near term where people can take shelter. And then in the long term, continuing those relationships and those partnerships with supplemental funding for a permanent facility.
Can I ask him a question?
Yes, go ahead.
So the money that's going to be left over, is that legal to?
Yes.
To hold out on ARP?
Yep.
To do that?
Yep, we'll do a subrecipient grant with them for the immediate shelter, then we'll do a subrecipient grant for the permanent shelter.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm glad to see all the groups came together to, solve this issue, at least getting on the road to solving the issue. So congratulations to all of you. Is there any- yes,
I would
go
just
ahead.
like to say I have to abstain from voting on this due to the fact that I serve on the board, but I'd like to commend Melinda Johnson and her staff and the passion and what they put into this. I see it every meeting that we have, so thanks for that. I appreciate you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I know I had already spoken on, you just spoke out of time, but I'm sure if I'm on the board, I can't vote on this either. Is that true, Todd?
The Community Action
we're not.
Agency is.
No. I'm on one of the partners boards. Yeah, they are.
No, they don't sign anything on it.
Oh, you don't? Okay. So they're not a part of the contract signing?
This is a contract between us and Blue Water Action,
This is-
Community Action. Yep.
Okay, I don't want y'all having me thrown in jail or something. Yeah, well, okay, well, either way, well, I guess I'll just, so Mr. Lawyer, so you just say it's okay.
You get thrown in jail.
Mr. Lawyer.
Oh, okay, all right, he's gonna pay for it, okay. Well, I'd just like to say, thanks to all the collaboration, and that's what we do good here in the city of Port Huron. We come together and we know what needs to be done. And I looked at your proposal, it seems like you have a pie here with everybody's hands in it. And I don't know where all this is going, but I'm hoping that, you can all come better fusing together so I can see a lead in there and I know what's happening, who is really leading this ship. Because it's all, you just don't have a ship with, when I was reading, if I'm, doing this proposal to myself, and I know you probably felt like that while you were writing it because that's what I read. And under any other circumstances, I probably wouldn't go for it, but what you're doing is so humanitarian. There are people out there, and this is what we do as people. We help one another, and somebody's cold tonight. I'll be warm, but somebody else is out there, don't have a place to go. And you've given us as a city council the opportunity to help make a difference, by having these funds available. But that doesn't mean that we just take funds and just throw them, just anyway. We got to make sure that we have something in front of us that has sustainability and that has something that you can put your teeth in. So I'm just telling you to get in there, even hopefully we pass this tonight, that you do a good job with pulling this more together and looking forward to that money that you're going to have left over to make sure it's solid in your approach to a warming station or attending to the homeless, because you really need that. You need that to happen. And so you will have the data from this moment going on in order to help you shape that to what it ought to be. So I just wanted to say that because I wouldn't sleep at night if I didn't tell you the truth. Because when I started reading, and I'm not looking for holes. I'm just saying, oh wow, I fell down. I thought, oh, this is not good, But it's something there, and I know it can be better. So thank you for, like I said, for coming together and doing that and giving us the opportunity to help you.
Mayor? Yes, go ahead.
I noticed in the proposal that the temporary shelter will be open from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. And I was just curious if that's the intent when it becomes a permanent, or do they even know that yet, or just out of curiosity?
They don't know that yet, but because this is a temporary facility, probably partnering with local churches, we want to make sure that we protect the areas that they're in, and then have these folks make sure they get out there and take care of the services they need and look for employment as well.
Thank you.
One of the things as well I want to also mention with bringing in the different partnerships is the wraparound services. So this just isn't a place to get warm. We're going to be able to partner with these groups to do wraparound services and really change the trajectory these folks are on.
Which is most likely what they'll be doing during the day then, is working with the other organizations. And then if it does become longer hours or 24 hours, then the permanent, then that need would be greater, the financial need and the partnership need.
Most likely.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? We will take the vote.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Father, yes.
Councilmember Harenza?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Mosherak?
Abstain?
Mayor Rett?
Yes. Move on to item 3.
Adopting a revised schedule of fees effective January 1st, 2023 for various sections of the Code of Ordinances and other user-specific fees.
Is there a motion?
So moved. Support.
Councilmember Mosherak, supported by Councilmember Pemberton. Any questions on the fee changes? We just have a few on there, mostly do with building permits, yeah.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I may ask, what prompted this fee changes or something?
It was part of our vacant building monitoring structure for buildings across the city. We have a lot of people who use, not a lot actually, who are using properties, just leaving them vacant for years, for 20 years, 30 years. I got a home in my neighborhood that is vacant. They're used as a storage shed. That is not the intent of these neighborhoods. They are become nuisances, attractive nuisances for crime. And this is an intent to get these people to have their homes not vacant, or at least pay for the policing costs and the in the community to have those facilities vacant.
And how do we justify on page 56, we went from 250 to 1,000? So what's the justification there?
We did comparable studies with other communities across the state, and that's what the cost is.
So we've been that far behind for all these years?
Which is
It
probably-
also was collected, if I may interrupt, I think it's collected once a year as opposed to 250 quarterly, so it's really not going up in
Correct.
price.
Correct.
Yeah, but it is on paper, and that's what people see.
Well, they're
that's
paying
what
the
I'm-
same amount, they're just
I know,
paying it once.
I know that much, but I'm just asking, it's 250, and now it's 1,000 on paper, and that's what people see. Okay, we may have a rationale, but they don't. All they know is they're not paying 250, they're paying 1,000. Thank you.
Any other questions? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Haremza?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Mosrak?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Move on to ordinances, number 1.
First reading, an ordinance to amend Chapter 10 Building and Building Regulations, Article 5, Non-Owner Occupied Certification, and Article 7, Foreclosed Vacant and Abandoned Property Registration of the Port Huron Code of Ordinances to provide for additions and revisions regarding blight violations, non-owner occupied residential dwellings and units, and vacant and abandoned homes within the city of Port Huron.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, supported by Councilmember Ashford.
Madam Mayor and Council, we have been meeting with the Port Huron Landlord Association and our legal counsel. Also, I believe the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem met with us as well to look at some, our rental ordinance has been in effect, and our blight ordinance has been in effect for about 20 years now. It's about time we take a look at it and see if there's minor tweaks that can be addressed. One of them was minor blight citations and minor issues that a tenant has shouldn't really affect the landlord's ability to obtain a 4-year cert. Right. So we just implemented a little bit more reasonableness into the process. We also allowed another layer of appeals for administrative warrants. We can now have an appeals process and a meeting in-house to see how we can come to a conclusion on that. So this is really just about looking at our system, saying maybe it's a little rigid, maybe it needs to be a little bit more reasonableness to it. And so I appreciate the Port Huron Landlord Association for working with us and for David Haynes to get the legislative work done. And that's what you have before you.
Any questions?
Mayor Rapp? Not a question. I just want to make note that I did speak with the Landlord Association. They had an opportunity to read it, and they are very pleased and in full support.
Thank you. Any other questions? We will take the vote.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Haremza?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Mosrak?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes, that concludes our agenda. Announcements, city offices will be closed December 23rd, the 26th, the 30th, and January 2nd in observance of the holidays. And also, I would like to take the opportunity to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and I am going to say Merry Christmas. And I hope that they have a good holiday season with hopefully their friends and family, and a safe one. Is there anything else to come before the council?
Just Merry Christmas to everyone.
Entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, real quick, tomorrow morning on porthuron.org/open-government, this will be available for download, the report that was talked about tonight. So if you want a digital copy, it will be available for download on the Open Government tab of the website.
Thank you very much. And motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Adjourn.